and that last year the keynote speaker was General Muntu. So this year they looked around for another general, and they felt that I would be the right person to give the keynote speech. Not really to say that the general title is a big one, especially today, but nevertheless, I'm really honored. I want to first thank you, before I go into the main, the gist of my invitation. I thank you, many of you, for standing with us when I lost my brother a few days ago. Yeah, many of you are there with us. You've sent us messages. I've not read many of the messages because they were overwhelming. You sent messages, condolences, some of you called. Yeah, we really don't take that for granted. Yeah, I thank you so much for that. And in that line, to request you that we stand up for a moment of silence in honor of my fallen brother, Dr. John Bosco Chigundu Spire. May his soul rest in peace. Thank you. When I'll not have to translate, I want to assume that many of us will understand me, but also for the sake of including those who may not understand Uganda. Otherwise, if I so here and there, I'll use a bit of Uganda, but I may not translate everything. When Mr. David Rubongwe reached out to me, I first turned down the invitation. Of course, following the recent loss of my dear brother, I have not yet recovered from the shock and pain. I've been quiet for a while since my mind is not yet in the right place. I'm still going through a long night. But I quickly remembered that when my brother died, Mr. Rubongwe is one of the so many people that reached out to me with condolences and a message from the President, Honorable Robert Chameleone. Abaganda bagamba nti munno mukabi. As a friend in difficult times is a true friend. But also on top of that, although I have not been very close to Noop, and this is my first time here, on a number of occasions, the leaders have reached out to me, sometimes encouraging me, please visit us, could we have a talk? A few years ago I held a comedy show, and I was surprised to see the entire crew of Honorable Kyagulanyi. Yes, even Nubian Lee was there with his small voice. I saw him in the audience. Yes, and Eddie Mutundwe, the Secretary General as well. I was really surprised because I never invited any politician, especially I wouldn't invite them because I wanted the show to go on. I don't know whether their intention was to sabotage the show by their presence. Yeah, but it means a lot if one can just randomly show up, and they showed up in such a number. I'm impressed by people who are humble. I'm impressed by people who do not try to show that they are high up there, but who can calm down, regardless of the positions they might hold or their qualifications. And I've seen this on a number of occasions, your leaders going to places where you wouldn't expect them to be. So that being with me, that being with us in grieving, but also on other occasions where it was really surprising for them to be there. I don't take it for granted. I remember even the time I was quarantined, again, Honorable Kyagulanyi called me, and he's one of those that tried to encourage me to go through that difficult time. So therefore, despite my current circumstances, I changed my mind and accepted to be here today. A friend I told about coming here asked me, "Are you sure you want to go there? Are you sure you want to be kidnapped while still grieving?" I told him that the kidnappers are human, they can't do that. Yes, and sometimes they are too stupid, they could take that for a compliment. The second reason why I accepted is because I believe that my relevance as an academic is primarily in being able to share the knowledge I have been privileged to acquire with my people that might need it. My titles mean little or nothing if I'm irrelevant to my community. We who want to consider ourselves to be highly educated have on so many occasions dismissed those who are trying to change what is not going right in this country. We have said that they lack knowledge. We said they are not well groomed. We have said they are unwashed. We have said they are still raw. In one of the speeches, I think the representatives of the group, yes, she said, "You went to the training when you were," did you mean raw or low? Oh, when you were raw. And now the president whispered to me that now you're low, L-A-W. Yes, so they said that some of you were raw and dismissed you on that account. Yet whenever we are invited to rise to the occasion, we shy away with excuses. I have chosen to respect whoever tries to do what needs to be done, even if they may not be perfect, even if they may be imperfect. After all, we are all imperfect. Era Abaganda tugamba nti akanyuga lyali nalyo. N'olwekyo mbasaamu ekitiibwa olw'okukanyuga lye muli nalyo wadde abamu bagamba nti ttono. I will certainly critique them, but in the spirit of improving, not destroying. That is the second reason why I accepted to come. I'm not here because you're perfect. No one is. I'm not here because I agree with everything you do. I'm not here because I think you have the best credentials. I'm here because, unlike many of us, you chose not to fold your hands. You chose to do what you can do in your capacity, which is better than doing nothing. I'm here because despite of all the risks you face, despite of the pictures on those walls of your comrades who have died in the struggle, despite of your colleagues being locked away in this beautiful country's jails without any fair trial, despite frequent threats of crushing you for no good reason, despite the everyday risk of being rounded up and driven away for torture, despite temptations of big monies being thrown at you, you people still stand by what you believe. I respect that. Yes, it is indeed surprising that with all that has happened at this place, you can still come here and find people seated here. You would only expect a fool to sit in such a place. Because for some, even just passing there, they have to run. Because this is a dangerous place. It's like what we used to hear about Bermuda Triangle. So for you to choose to still stay in a place that is that risky to be, especially where the risk is not for having broken any law, but for standing by a certain cause. I really respect that. Whether I agree with it or not, I still respect it. And especially because we don't have many people today who are willing to take such a stance. The third reason I'm here is because of your constant efforts at making yourselves better. You have challenged many of us at individual level, we who consider ourselves to be more worthy. You have challenged all the political parties and seasoned politicians. Of course, it's not to say or to despise them. They are doing some of them are doing wonderful things, but I think it's a challenge for the few years you've been around to do what you've been able to do. We may publicly bash you, but we privately ask ourselves, aba bavubuka bakikola batya? You have responded to dismissal by proving your capacity to grow and transform, as the president said. We said you're not educated, which was not entirely true, because many of you are really educated and even highly educated. But when we say that you're not educated, many of you went back to school. We said you were bayaye, hooligans. Although I think many of you might have believed, like I do, that there is nothing wrong with carrying dreadlocks. You painfully cut them off to fit into the public's idea of a decent person. After all, and this reminds me of a song by Morgan Heritage. You don't? Yes, right. You don't have to dread to be Rasta. You don't have to dread to be Rasta. Yes, it's not a dreadlocks thing, it's a divine conception of the heart. Nubia, I expected to hear a small voice behind. I don't know why, for the many years I've been hearing your collabos with now Bobi Wine, I don't know why you choose to always sing the small voice and he sings the big one. Yes, but the point I'm trying to make is that even when they said you're bayaye, some of you had to cut off your dreadlocks, although you knew that it's not really about the dreadlocks, it's not about appearance, it's what one has at heart, what one has in their mind. You chose to cut them off to fit into the public narrative for the sake of what you believed needed to be done. You set up a leadership school whose fruits we are celebrating today, something that was unprecedented. We wondered what the curriculum was, and it has been asked many times. I heard you mention some of the things you studied, but many people have been asking, what is that school teaching and who are the lecturers? I've been able to see some of them here today. Yes, but that's no mean achievement, and beyond it being an achievement, it also shows the zeal to learn, an understanding that we are not going to keep ourselves in a particular position. We need to inform ourselves in order to do what we have to do. Someone said that, I forget the name, that if he was given a task of cutting down a tree and he was given 4 hours, he would spend the first 3 hours sharpening the axe and maybe 1 hour to cut the tree. You have been sharpening your axe because there was a provision that was set according to the vision, which I really commend. Earlier this year, you invited me to speak to your trainees. It was my first time to visit your facilities. One thing that struck me was how the trainees listened very attentively and with very high discipline for over 3 hours. For over 3 hours, I overstayed my welcome. I was invited to speak for 1 hour, I ended up speaking for 3. But they stayed there listening attentively. and the discipline with which they took instruction from the director, Miss Doreen Kaija, it was really amazing. At the time I visited the school, it had just been violently raided by security and most equipment had been confiscated. I asked if there was a projector that I could use for my presentation. And Doreen responded, "We don't have, everything was taken." But when I entered the room, I found it packed with people waiting for me. I asked them, "You people, how are you able to still gather in this place, yet you know you can be rounded up anytime?" They simply laughed. I found that commitment and the desire to learn quite impressive. The fourth reason why I'm here, now when I'm giving the reasons, it sounds like I'm singing UB40's song. Which song is that? Even Doctor is also into the thing. Yes, reasons why I love you 1, reasons why I love you 2. Now I'm on the fourth reason. This is a selfish one. I'm here to distract myself from the pain of losing my brother and to use this occasion to make reflections on life, purpose and resilience, which could speak to your life experiences and aspirations. When John died, almost everything I have been doing lost meaning. Kati abakamera balinze nkaaba sigenda kaaba. Agala mukwata akafaananyi mukagyeyo nga wayise emyaka ng'akapasita bugingo mukatambuze. Sigenda kaaba wadde enkovu zinnuma. So when John died, almost everything I've been doing lost meaning. I keep asking myself, what for? What is life all about? What is the actual difference between being alive and being dead? Why do we struggle so hard in life only to vanish like wildflowers? Why do people who try to do good suffer? Why do those who bring pain to others often live long? What is the worth of our effort on earth? Why should we continue doing anything or even continue to live? So many questions, very few clear answers. I will only on one here. The question of why we are here on earth is a difficult one to answer. Ensonga lwaki tuli wano ku nsi ng'abantu nzibu nnyo okuzuula. From a religious angle, the answer comes easily, that we are here to worship God and do whatever He created us to do. I would focus more on the second purpose of doing what we were created for. On the purpose of worshiping God, I'm hesitant to believe that a perfect God would create us simply for the sake of singing His greatness. Only imperfect beings wish to be worshipped. I'm therefore more inclined to believe in worship through actions towards our fellow imperfect human beings and other animals. I don't so much believe in worship that is about only singing about God's greatness if that is not reflected in our actions. I think our actions mean much more than what we can sing. On the second purpose, how do we know what God created us for? Even the thief might argue that if we say that God knew us before we were born, then God knew that He would be a thief. Therefore, He is simply fulfilling God's plan. The torturer might make the same argument. Maybe that is why they often talk about torturing others and they mention Jesus in the same statement. Maybe that is why they would make public apologies but without regretting or redressing any specific harm that they did to others. We would argue that perhaps the best way to tell if what we are doing or plan to do is what God created us for. We consider to be God's nature. Can a good God create a person with the purpose of harming others? That would contradict God's nature as we know it. The other approach to understanding our purpose is by simply studying human nature in general and our particular uniqueness as individuals in our circumstances. When you keenly study human beings, you realize that there are two important elements that shape our key life choices. The two elements are happiness and pain. I consider those to be the most important aspects of human life, happiness and pain, and I will explain why. We are trying to maximize happiness for ourselves and to minimize pain or suffering.
Alright guys, please support us with any mobile money you can using that mobile money number which is pinned on your screen and in the live chat. Please support us in any way. Thank you so much.
The reason you go to hospital when you're sick is to minimize pain. The reason you seek for a well-paying job is to minimize happiness, rather to maximize happiness and minimize the pain of poverty or being broke. The reason you buy a car or build a house, the reason you produce children and take them to school is more or less the same. The reason why human beings at one point came up with the idea of having a government above them is so that it would help them to do things that they could not do individually. I don't think human beings set up governments as an end in themselves, as that a government was a good thing to be there just as a government. It was set in place to help them achieve things that they could not achieve individually as a way of maximizing happiness.
Yes guys, bana tugende maaso n'okubanga tusindika akakasente konna k'osobola ku namba y'essimu eyo ku screen. Tulina bye twetaaga bingi nnyo gye tugenda wawanvu, tulina bye twagala osetinga nga tetunaba kusimbula. Bambi mutusupportinge nga mukozesa namba eyo, esente tuzeetaaga, tuyanza nnyo tuyanzeeke.
Minimize happiness and minimize pain. Not so that the powerful can maximize their happiness at the expense of the weak or subjects. The forms of government that survive on exploiting those under them have been tried in human history and found to be unsustainable. Even though some parts of the world still insist on them, they are not sustainable and they end up crashing, unfortunately, with so many people over time. We then realize that it is not enough for us to pursue what makes us happy and minimizes our individual pains without regard to the happiness and pain of others. The limit of your search for happiness is that point at which your happiness starts causing pain to others. This is where a sadist's view of happiness becomes problematic. A sadist is someone who gets happiness from the suffering of others. It is a mental disorder. If you ever see someone celebrating the pain of others, and especially if they are not celebrating the pain of an oppressor, then that person has a mental disorder. Because naturally, you would feel bad or something would haunt you if another person is going through pain. A person who celebrates the torture of another is a sadist, except, and I want to emphasize, except if the one whose suffering is being celebrated is the kind that causes pain to others. I'm one of those who believe that it's not a bad thing to celebrate the pain of an oppressor. And I saw people throwing that at me when I lost my brother. But the difference is, my brother was not an oppressor of anyone. I'm not an oppressor of anyone, or so I would want to believe. So celebrating his death wouldn't really make sense in that context. But if the person who has died has been making the life of others unbearable, it is understandable why those people would celebrate naturally. Ideally, as human beings, the most ideal world would be one where we care about maximizing each other's happiness and minimizing each other's pain. Many conflicts in the history of humanity have been caused by a desire of different individuals or groups to exclusively care about their happiness without being bothered about the pain of others. While we human beings boast about being the only rational animals, it is strange how our rationality often fails to show us that a world where the happiness of some individuals is based on the suffering of others is never sustainable. How does our rationality fail to show us that almost obvious case? The one whose happiness inflicts pain on others can never really be happy in the long run. I repeat, the one whose happiness inflicts pain on others can never really be happy in the long run. They live in fear. They keep worrying about what their victims would be planning. Their display of anger and violence is not always because they want to show power. It is mostly because they are frightened. Have you ever observed the reaction of a dog that is trapped in a room when you get in? The anger it shows as it growls is actually born out of fear. That is why the slave abolitioner Frederick Douglass said that no man can put a chain on the leg of his fellow man without at last finding the other end fastened around his neck. I repeat this quote from Frederick Douglass: no man can put a chain around the leg of a fellow man or a fellow woman without at last finding the other end of that chain fastened around his own neck. And it's partly why the oppressors live in fear. Much as they will chain others, that chain is also around their necks. It is not really a good thing to live in fear all the time. One of the high security, unnecessarily high security, is because they are afraid of what those they lead, which is a contradiction. Why should I fear people that I lead? Especially if I assume they love me. Knowing then that no one desires pain, and that often the pain we cause to others ultimately affects our happiness, we should all seek to pursue a life that aims at achieving the greatest happiness possible for everyone and the least pain possible. As you think about what you should be as a leader in your different capacities, seek to be that leader who does not prioritize his or her own happiness, even when it harms others. Corruption becomes wrong because of how it harms others for the sake of the happiness of some. I imagine that some of you are planning to stand in the forthcoming election, some of you graduates. I have already seen posters with all sorts of catchy slogans, some clearly deceptive. Do you really mean your slogans, or it is just a bait to catch voters? What is motivating you to stand for that position? What is motivating you to sell your property to raise funds for campaigns? Is it to maximize the happiness of those you seek to represent? Is that the reason why party cards are a do or die Is that why people fight and treat each other as enemies in elections? Is it mainly about competition to serve? Are these people who are almost willing to kill each other simply competing to serve? That I would die in order to be the one to serve people? I think we need to reflect about that. What is the balance between personal interests? Thank you. What is the balance between personal interests and the interest to serve? While we congratulate you, the graduates, for having accomplished the leadership training, your certificate is not what we celebrate. We celebrate what we expect you to have become. We do not expect you to always remind us about what you studied. We simply want to see the difference in your actions. It should be your actions to announce what you studied, not just the certificate or your words. We don't primarily care about the quality of the dog in the fight. We mainly care about the quality of the fight in the dog. As Wole Soyinka once said, a tiger does not announce its tigritude. A tiger doesn't have to announce that, hey, I'm a tiger. How do you know that it's a tiger? A tiger does not have to announce its tigritude. It pounces. And after it has pounced, then you would know that that is what? Ugandans are in the habit of announcing their titles. I'm Dr. Muchibi Yusuf. I'm Engineer Opolot Patrick. I'm Honorable Agaba James. Yes, but in my view, it would make more sense if it is the people who added the title on the basis of what they see in you. It shouldn't be you to announce your own importance. You could have noticed, and I'm not in the habit of praising myself, just to make the point, you will not see my title anywhere on my social media handles. You will not see Dr. Spire Ssentongo. It's just my name plain. If one feels I should be called doctor, then they should use the title, but not me to announce it everywhere and to introduce myself. I'm honored to be here. I'm Dr. Spire Ssentongo. Yes, I worked for it, but the fact that I worked for it is not the most important thing. To me, the most important thing is what that title can do. Sometimes I've appeared on discussions, talk shows, and I've seen a comment on social media. What is a cartoonist doing discussing politics? I don't have to tell them anything. I don't have to justify myself, to tell them about my qualifications, except on one occasion when I had to do it, when I felt it was quite provocative. So I just told the person, here is my CV. I have 4 degrees and 2 of them are first-class degrees. Can I know yours? And I did not get a response. But that's not the important thing. Actually, despite, I mentioned it some time back, despite of all the degrees I have, you will not even find a graduation photo picture in my house. I don't have even one. For other reasons, but one of them, I don't want to be the one to every visitor should see the owner of this house has all these degrees and therefore they know how to behave in the house. First and foremost, they should know that they have visited a human being. That is the most important thing. Uganda is not short of educated people. Uganda is not short of people desiring to be leaders. Uganda is mainly short of people that are willing and ready to use their knowledge and positions for doing good beyond their personal interests. Ugandan politics is not simply short of people of integrity. Rather, Ugandan politics is simply short of people of integrity. And this runs across the political divide, across the spectrum. We have seen crooks in government, and we have seen real crooks in the opposition. Is that true? Yes. You've seen crooks in government and real crooks where? You do not become entitled to being a crook simply because you're in opposition. Recently, when we held the Parliament exhibition with Agora, which Honorable Chagulanyi mentioned, with a few exceptions, I was shocked by the silence of most opposition MPs about the rot in the House. Many of them avoided commenting or even volunteering information about the abuse of taxpayers' money in Parliament, which they were actually aware about. Many of them were quiet. I'm not shocked by the silence of those